Oh, five. Okay, good evening. It is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. This is Norwalk's Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency meeting. Could we have roll call, please?
Absolutely. Cheryl Brown.
Here.
Ed Hollowinko.
Here.
Heather Breslin.
Here.
And Steve Clocky.
Here, and I believe Catherine Knight is here as well.
Here.
Oh my goodness, there you are. Apologies.
Okay.
I
Good.
didn't see you sneak in. All
Do
right,
we
so
have-
we have five. That is definitely a quorum.
Good. Do we have anyone call in from the public to make a comment?
Yeah, so if anyone would like to make a comment during the public comment session, again, it is these are comments that are not regarding any specific pending application, but they can be general comments for the Conservation Commission or the Inland Wetland Agency as a whole. And so we have Michelle Abruzzi.
Actually, hey, hang on one second, please.
Okay.
Michelle, I've got a question for you, Alexis. So I happen
Yes.
to notice that Miss Abruzzi is a neighbor to a property that we are possibly talking about today.
Yes, a pending application.
Okay, so I guess I would just remind her that her comments must be generic in nature and really shouldn't be directed toward aforementioned issue, property violation, etc.
Agreed. And then I will further mention that for Singing Woods Road will require a public hearing. It's a significant regulated activity, so a public hearing will be required. And a public hearing will allow the public, including any neighbors, to speak once that public hearing is scheduled and held. So we still have 2 hands raised for public comment. Would like me to proceed?
How many do we have raised now?
2.
Okay.
1.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
nope.
2.
All right, so if you are interested in
that
making
is
a
that how
general
one waves?
comment,
I don't know. Am I on mute or can you hear me?
you
You're
are,
unmuted.
you are-
Yes. No, I was trying to raise my hand. I don't know if it was raising or lowering as I was doing that.
Okay.
Awesome. So Michelle Abruzzi's 2 Singing Woods Court. And again, thank you for allowing the public to speak. I just as I did the last time I was here, I did talk general about the wetlands throughout Norwalk. If you listen to that, you'll see that it was completely general and not specific to any wetland in Norwalk, but the wetlands in general. And today I would like to express my deep concern regarding the vernal pools that are in Norwalk, which, if you're not familiar with those are temporary wetlands that play a crucial role in our local ecosystem that support rich diversity of wildlife, including several amphibian species that rely on these habitats for breeding. There's actually a study that was done in Connecticut. The study was called Vernal Pool Conservation in Connecticut, an Assessment and Recommendations. And it was conducted by the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. And it highlighted the importance of these habitats. It emphasized that vernal pools must be studied in the spring when they are active, because ephemeral wetlands known as vernal pools, and this is a direct quote from the study, filled with water during the spring and they often dry out by the summer, end quote. Their ephemeral nature means they're often dried out by the summer, making it a challenge to identify and protect them outside of the spring season. The study also highlights the impact of habitat fragmentation on amphibian populations. They looked at a 20-year period of wood frogs and how they disappeared from forest patches smaller than, and this is a new term I learned, hectares, which are less than 99 acres, due to habitat fragmentation. Furthermore, vernal pools require upland protection as juvenile amphibians can disperse up to 1,000 meters from these pools. Another quote, juvenile amphibians may disperse up to 1 kilometer kilometer from vernal pools, necessitating upland protection. Many of these amphibians that depend on the pool for successful breeding include some that are even endangered or of special concern in Connecticut, such as the eastern spadefoot toad and the Jefferson salamander. And the wood frog is another species that's commonly seen in these areas. I can speak from experience. I have tons of frogs in my backyard and I can hear them at night. It's awesome. It's so soothing to hear that. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but adult salamanders often breed in a single pool throughout their reproductive lives while living in the surrounding upland areas. So after reproducing, adult salamanders disperse an average of 125 meters into the upland habitat surrounded by the breeding pools. Juvenile salamanders and frogs may wander respectively as about 670 to 1,000 meters from their birth site and can select pools other than their birthplace for breeding, such as like the Norwalk River or the Silvermine River. These juvenile dispersals make landscape connectivity essential. Young amphibians must be able to locate alternative breeding habitats. Additionally, populations in isolated pools may decline if immigration of neighboring pools is prevented. Connectivity preserves the genetic diversity of small amphibian populations while providing the necessary upland habitat for adults. The Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection recommends a 33-meter upland review area around the wetlands, with some towns extending this to 115 meters to ensure adequate protection. Quote, some commissions have opted for even larger review areas, enabling local inland wetlands and watercourse commissions to review and comment on most land use proposals, end quote. To protect Norwalk's natural heritage and ensure a sustainable future, I urge you to conduct a thorough analysis of any vernal pool in the vicinity of any proposed development in Norwalk. Let us prioritize the health of our ecosystem over short-term economic gains and ensure that our vernal pools and wetlands remain protected and thriving. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you. Next is Susan Bayman.
Hi, yep, it's Susan Bayman, and I live at 1 Singing Woods Court in Norwalk. And as a proud Norwalk resident for over 35 years, I just want to take this opportunity to applaud the work of your Conservation Commission for overseeing and regulating the activities relating to the maintenance of our inland wetlands and our waterways. You know, I couldn't agree with you more that our inland wetlands and watercourses are, and I'm quoting from your regulations, an indispensable and irreplaceable but fragile natural resource with which Norwalk citizens have been endowed. And I appreciate how you've adopted regulations over the years, which in your words, balance the need for the economic growth of the city and the use of its land and the need to protect the environment and ecology in order to forever guarantee to the people of our city the safety of our natural resources. In fact, you even recently expanded your definition of regulated activity. The first amendment to your regulations, it looks like in over 14 years, to expand your purview to within 100 feet from the boundary of wetlands or watercourse, up from 50 feet, recognizing the increased importance of the need to protect our environment. So on behalf of my husband and myself, and we have the Silvermine River behind us, and we've had dealings with the Conservation Commission over the years, and you've made some changes to some of our plans, and sometimes it's cost us a little bit of money, but our dealings have always been very fair. And so we want to thank you for your service and for being at the forefront of protecting Norwalk's inland wetlands and watercourses. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think is that it for public comment, Alexis? And you are muted, by the way.
Always. Miss Michelle Abruzzi has her hand raised again. Nope, she doesn't. Making sure. That is it for public comment.
So we're done. That's it for public comment, you said. Okay, great. Moving on then to receipt and discussion for S24-643 Bonnie Brook Trail.
Okay, so this is a application to do some bridge repair. That the bridge repair does include some in-stream work and some scour fixes. Mr. Stopnick is here from the Department of Public Works, and as is anyone else that's part of it, you're welcome to speak. And then Paul, I didn't know if there were any attendees, if you can see them, that should be moved over for your project, or if you have everyone here.
Peter Grandy is representing Weston and Sampson for the Department of Public Works. And if you'd like, I can give a brief overview. As Alexis had mentioned, my name is Paul Sotnick. I'm a senior civil engineer with the Department of Public Works in Norwalk in the engineering division. In 2019, the city had 26 local bridges that have spans of less than 20 feet inspected by Freeman companies. And at that point, they developed reports and ratings for the conditions of the structures, as well as other maintenance work that would need to be done for the various bridges. And since then, we have started working to address the items that were brought up and mentioned in those reports. At this point, we've done preservation work that's been completed on 2 bridges. We've also had a replacement of an entire bridge that we had to do. And at this point in time, we are in design currently for the preservation of 5 additional bridges, 2 of which we are bringing to your committee tonight for permitting and the introduction and receipt portion of the Inland Wetlands Commission procedures. And 2 of those 5 bridges are Bonnie Brook Trail over Holy Ghost Father's Brook, and there are 2 bridges in close proximity to each other. So at this point, I can hand it over. We've asked Weston and Sampson to assist the city in consulting with us for design services for those 2 bridges. And Mr. Grandy is representing Weston and Sampson tonight and can take it from there.
Thank you, Paul. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to share my screen. I have a little presentation on the bridges and the structures that we're doing.
Be great.
While Peter is setting that up, I'll just mention these items that we're going to be addressing too. Some of them are what we need to have done in order to come into compliance with both state and federal regulations that are new compared to when the bridges were originally installed.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, as Paul mentioned, this is Bonnie Brook storm drain improvement. It's more basically about the bridges than the actual drainage itself, but to keep the drainage continual through the 2 bridges, 102-025 and 102-029. As you can tell, they're actually it's a combination of 4 pipe culverts, about 2.5 feet diameter around for each of them, as shown in the picture. And again, my name's Peter Grandy, and I represent Weston and Sampson for the city of Norwalk for these projects, and we're actually working on these. So just to give you a project location, they're right on Bonnie Brook itself. They're very close to each other. They're almost adjacent to each other. They're so close. It's basically you go around the bend and the other structure is right there. So this gives you a better close-up of the two bridges. 102025 is closer to the, there's a pond area, and 102029 just has the brook flowing through it. So this just gives you an indication. These are the structures, the pipe structures with some head walls that we're in the process of updating and repairing. The actual pipe structures, you'll notice that there's some issues with debris in front of some of the pipe structures. The pipes themselves, there are some scour holes in front of the bridge structures, as well on both sides, the inlet and the outlets. And so we are doing a little bit of work in stream as well. The majority of the work for the bridge structure is filling in mortar, repairing some of the mortar and the stones. We're not replacing the bridge structures as hydraulically. They are sufficient as the openings that are there for the design. Your design that is required for this type of roadway. As you could tell, there's some deficiencies where stone is missing, grout is missing, that type of thing. But the other issues that, like I said, is that there is some issues with scour holes at the beginning and end of the inlet and outlets of the bridges. And there is some debris that we would like to also remove as part of that work. So this is 025. This shows you approximately, or gives you the temporary requirements and the water course requirements and permanent and changes that we're making. And a lot of this is riprap that we're putting in. And then we are putting a cofferdam. We're going to, and I'll get to that a little bit, show you that a little bit later. But the cofferdams are actually going to, so we can work on one side or the other of the bridge structure, keeping it in the dry while and not doing any work in the waterway while it's wet. This is the other bridge structure. Again, this a little bit more. It's a pretty big scour hole along the east side of the structure, but at the inlet, but at the outlet, not too bad. But again, there's some undermining going on. I shouldn't say undermining, just some scouring going on in front of the structure. It's not necessarily too deep. This one is probably the deepest out of all the locations. So it gives you a feel for how you could see how some of the structure, how deep it's getting. It's not horrible, but we want to protect the bridge structure to allow it to work in its best capacity. This is a cofferdam that they would use, showing you the temporary cofferdam and how we're going to handle it. The cofferdams will break up this in about half. The structure will be done at any one time. And again, the cofferdams will be put in the waterway at a low tide. We understand, we believe there's fishways here too. When we do the intermediate ripraps in the stream, we will also dress them with natural stream bed material. So any fish and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about that. And we did minimize the type or the size of the riprap as small as we can go based on the flows that are out there and that what would be anticipated during some of the storm events that would be there. And again, the purpose of most of this is repointing, just doing some repair. We up on the roadway itself, we are replacing some of the guardrail, but that won't affect the streamway in any way, shape, or form. So based on that, I thank you. And if you have any questions or discussions, I'm here to answer any questions.
Could you maybe go back to the diagram that you had of the wetland impacts and the extent?
Mhm.
And so just to be clear, so there are some temporary impacts to both the wetland and water course for
Yes,
each of the bridges. And
correct.
then the permanent impacts within the water course, for the most part, that is where the deposition of riprap would occur.
Yes, yes, yes. There is a little bit on the stream bank, a little bit, but it's all we're putting in some riprap only because of erosion on the outlets. There's a little bit of erosion occurring. So again, it's just to protect the streamway and not to have an issue down the road with the structure itself as well.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry, how old was the original, the bridge now?
The bridge, the bridge itself, I believe, is like 30, 40 years old.
Okay.
We did look, when we went down there, we actually looked in the culverts. The culverts were in great condition. There was nothing in the culverts.
Mm.
They were very smooth. You can actually see from one end to the other. So nothing, there's no bulges or anything like that happening because of the roadway above it or anything like that. The head walls, you know, some stones were missing. So we want to repair that and put a little bit of mortar in to get them solid so there's no issues down the road.
And just to answer a little further on the age, these structures go back to the original time that the subdivision was done in the 60s, 70s.
Other commissioners have questions?
What is currently there where the riprap is going in?
Basically, right now, it's just stream bed. That's all it is. There is, you know, it's just a stream bed material that, and again, that's why when we put the riprap in, we put the stream bed material. We actually, they have this new material that you can get, and it's a stream bed material for that purpose to cover up any rough edges along the riprap, stuff like that. And it stays very well in the riprap itself. And we've been doing this on a number of structures. It's not uncommon. We do this a lot with the DOT as well.
So where's the vegetation end and where does the riprap start?
Generally, the vegetation ends outside these water lines.
Okay.
Here and here. So the majority of this here, and then this is the other outline. So the majority of this is, you know, inside the waterway. And that's where then once you get outside the ordinary high water level, then you start getting into the stream bed. So this little green portion in here and this here, that's your stream bed. That's your stream, your banks on the stream, and that's outside the ordinary high water mark.
So today we're just receiving this information, correct? And
Yes.
Correct. So one of the determinations would need,
who owns kind of those pieces of land, just so I understand that?
It's my understanding, I believe the town owns the land.
They're adjacent parcels. They're private properties that are adjacent that the stream and the Holy Ghost Father's Brook goes through. So there are private properties adjacent to where the brook is.
Mhm.
As Peter mentioned, one of the main reasons for the riprap is to try and fill the scour holes that are in the stream bed now, and then cap it off with the stream bed material.
What's causing the scour holes?
Generally, it's caused by it depends upon the year storm, but like, let's say you get a 25-year storm or a 50-year storm, the flows through there causes it because it's not that the water is held back, but it causes turbulence. And the more if you don't repair it, the more turbulence you're going to get because you're actually scouring in front of it, and that's what causes it. So by putting the riprap back in, and it's just a mitigation, that's really what the riprap does, is mitigates it. so you don't have this constantly occurring.
Cool. Okay, if no other commissioners have questions, and if the applicant has nothing else they'd like to add, we will say thank you and expect to see you at our next meeting. And I assume that Alexis and company will ideally come up with a draft resolution that we can approve to get this going. If they'd be so kind.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Take care.
Okay, moving on to discussion and or decision. First one is S24-640 Lloyd Road.
The property owner was here, but I think he's now left. The applicant's agent, Jay Fain, was unable to attend tonight, so he's asked that the matter be tabled to the next meeting.
Happy to do that.
I think that is fine, since listening to the recording of the previous meeting, there are some requests of the applicant to provide additional information before you schedule a public hearing, and we haven't received any new information yet.
Noted. Moving forward then to S24-641 4 Singing Woods Road.
All right, so this application you received at your last meeting. And again, there are kind of two components to this application. The one that is most proximal to the wetland is the proposed wetland mitigation and restoration that stem from an unresolved 2004 wetland violation. And then additionally, the applicant proposes to develop the southernmost portion of the lot. Portions of that development activity are within your upland review areas. And so if there's anyone in the attendees list that should be a participant, applicant team, please just let me know and I can send them over. I think you have everyone there.
I think we do. Thanks, Alexis. Good evening, Bill Kenny with William Kenny Associates in Fairfield, here on behalf of the applicant. Also here this evening is Len DeAndrea, the civil engineer, surveyor for the project, and Jeffrey Efron, the owner and applicant. We were before you at your last meeting and presented the project, and you had some questions or raised some comments and concerns. So we went back and reviewed this as a team. DeAndrea and Associates has developed a sketch plan to show some potential changes, primarily with removing some improvements out of the upland review area, either moving them out or moving them, at least moving some of these improvements further from the wetland. So I was gonna, I think Len will review that with you, and then we could also then circle back and talk about anything or questions you might have about the wetland, correcting the violation that exists out there.
Okay,
So.
thanks.
So Bill, you want me to take it away?
Yes, sir. Please, Len.
All right. Hi, this is Leonard DeAndrea, a Connecticut professional engineer with DeAndrea Surveying Engineering PC. Brian French also has been working on this project with us, one of our senior engineers. And I was not present at your last meeting. And recently I got to walk the property thoroughly after getting some feedback from Brian and listening to some of your concerns and suggestions. And certainly we can make some. So I'm going to try to bring up a screen. I gather I hit share screen and maybe this now. Let's see.
Alexis, is it standard for us to try to have these documents received before the meeting so we have a chance to get them online and make them publicly available?
If I can clarify that,
yeah.
Alexa, this is not being submitted tonight. This is just showing you what we're working on for you for the next hearing.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm hoping you can see my screen. Can you see this now, the color rendering?
Can you zoom in a little bit, please, Len?
Sure
Yes.
can, yeah.
One more.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. That works.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start out here in the road, and the start of the driveway location is perfect. This is a little previously prepared, like temporary cul-de-sac, let's call it, before they extended the roadway on. And then what you see here describing this long rectangle, that's what we would refer to as engineers and surveyors as a paper road at this point, paper road, because it's not improved. It was set up in order to give this large rear lot in here. Actually, I can't call it a rear lot. It's actually a fronting lot. It was done so it would have this zoning frontage in the back. And so now this is established as a lot with frontage. And that was documented and filed on the land records as map 7308 on March 23rd in 1970. But as you can also tell, it's encumbered with the wetlands. So next door is another lot, lot number 15 on a previous map that our client also owns, which is extremely helpful in this situation. So instead of coming here before you and saying, hey, we don't own the property next door, the owner refuses us to give us an easement, we really have to come in here and disturb wetlands as little as possible in order to bring a driveway into our property. So in this case, same owner, we are able to then secure an easement for utilities, drainage, and the driveway, and stay out of this paper road altogether. And that's what we've done. Now, since you saw this previously, and after walking it, we said, well, we can push it a little bit more. We can push it as close to the easement as really is functional, while at the same time preserving as many trees. And one in particular, which is out by the road, that's this tree right over here. And as you drive around, you're going to see it. Right now, it's shrouded in the usual invasives. So as part of this development, that all gets cleaned up. And then we come through here in a gradual slope, and we pull into what will be our home site. You noticed that there was a back out area over here, back out used for guest parking, which is a good idea given the long driveway, but it doesn't have to go there. So we're going to eliminate that. And then we're also going to pull everything back farther from the wetlands and give you more of the, in fact, in this case with the level spreader outlet, previously we had it right here. That's what you saw in the application package. We're now going to shove everything to the, I think that's to the east, I have it about right, and get it completely out of the review area. So we would be moving the house and the pool 8 feet, taking what we're showing as 3 rows of infiltrators and making into 2 rows a little bit longer. So that gives us more room and pulling it all back. And then this level spread will get pushed back about 15 feet and it'll clear that review area. Again, we take in this area here, we do believe that we should provide a little extra parking back here if we can. So if we can do this, we'll take these parking spaces from here, put them over here, and then push this back a little bit more as far as this goes, in this location as well. The mechanical equipment here, same thing, it'll be pushed back. So that then creates the backyard. Very little disturbance in that respect because we're really just taking about 8 feet from it, and we've got plenty of room back here to do that. Make a nice smooth transition into this. Septic system is not compromised. Drainage still does the same thing, and we're actually spraying it out. So we can get these changes made and submitted back in time for what we hope is the scheduled public hearing from tonight. That's the general plan of attack. And if you have any questions, be happy to do before we take the pen to the paper.
I've got 2 to start us off. This was submitted before we increased our upland review area. Is that correct, Alexis? Okay.
Yes.
So just for the record, our upland review area is 50 feet, not 100 feet, which you guys obviously are aware of. Are we confident there are no wetlands on lot 15?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good.
We reviewed that. Yep.
Okay, those are the questions I had. Commissioners, any other questions?
This is predominantly the driveway, right? that is within the upland review?
That is correct. I want to trace the limit of the upland review in my hand right now. It's a green line, if you can see it.
Yep,
And of
Thank
course, the
you.
driveway is that shaded tan or yellow.
I
And
see.
it comes back into here. So that's it. And then it pulls back away.
thank you. A lot of lines.
A lot of lines, yeah, sorry.
Green, I think it's got a little green tint to it.
Yeah,
Should have made it thicker for you, yes.
Okay. I don't see, oh, yes, Commissioner Knight.
Just trying to get an understanding of how many trees are being removed from the upland review area for the driveway. Are those the circles there that are lined out?
Let me enlarge this a little bit more. Okay, so as we shifted, there's a nice oak over here we can protect. These crosshatched ones here, these are the ones are slated for removal. And even this one here, even though we're moving it, placing these infiltrators in, hey, you know, it helps to hydrate and recharge, but we would have to lose a tree, these few in this area here. And then we're keeping all these. The nice part is, instead of bringing it into here, this is a huge buffer in here, and this gets totally protected now. But yes,
looks
there's,
like-
if I count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, maybe. Of a decent size.
Is there any appetite to maybe install new trees to help offset the removal of some of those?
I'm gonna just say one thing before I defer to our Phil Kenny, our landscape architect. I've worked with Mr. Efron on a number of projects, and if I have anything to say about him that may not be a compliment, is he tends to over landscape. So any suggestions of what Mr. Kenny proposes here, I think he will absolutely embrace.
Bill, do you have any thoughts on that, or Mr. Efren?
We could certainly plant some trees on the wetland side. It might be, because of the existing trees that'll remain there, it might be a little tight, but we could plant a few shade trees along the southern side that will help control the amount of sunlight going over to the wetland, and shade that whole area, and shade the pavement to help with the heat island effect from that.
Okay.
It's good that the stormwater's, yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we're poking holes in the canopy, it'd be nice to try to patch them as best we could, reasonably.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me check my commissioners here. Nobody else has hands raised. I guess the only other thing I'd throw out there is if you do want to try to get the public hearing scheduled for our next meeting, or if you'd like to submit updated plans as you've shown us today as an intermediate step, that's entirely up to you.
First of all, we really like to schedule a public hearing as soon as possible. At the next hearing, be obviously fantastic. Trying to get this thing and keep it in motion. We see, I've talked over these considered changes with Brian French here, and they're not difficult to implement. It's, thank God we're in the CAD world now, and we can shift and move and get these plans completed in about a week's time, I would say. So I would say early next week we can have them in, and I hope that's enough time for everyone. Early next week to have them submitted in time for the public hearing.
Alexis?
So let me just double check what we have written in our regulations. Hold on a second.
Thank you.
So we do have under section 60A-8 application procedures, paragraph I, if a public hearing is to be held on an application, the applicant must submit all documentary evidence in support of the application to the agency no fewer than 10 days prior to the date of the hearing or any reconvening thereof. So I think if you can get it in within 10 days prior,
By the 13th?
be less than a week.
That would be this Friday, and
would-
I'm making Brian say yes, he can meet that deadline.
Okay.
I think my client's saying that too.
Yep, so if it can be in by Friday.
Right.
At 4.
Yeah.
And I will upload it to the website and the hearing can proceed.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
And so
Okay.
then also if a hearing is scheduled for your next meeting on the 23rd, then you'd also have to send out a notice to all adjacent property owners by that same date, by Friday.
By Friday. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Heather, do you have a question?
I'm just, I might be a little confused, so just tell me, how does this dovetail into the violation? How are they connected? They're not, or does anything one hinge on the other, or they need to be resolved separately, I believe, but I don't know what the implications are.
So it's all one application. So as I noted, there had been a violation notice issued in 2004 to the previous owner
Yep.
for filling the wetland. That was unresolved. As I review aerial photos, it's clear that the filling continued over time. When the current owner approached the office to talk about development of the lots that were recently purchased, there was discussion with me as far as how to rectify the violation and then the timing of development. And the applicant could have come in to just rectify the violation and then return to you with an application for the new house construction. If they had done that, I'd say that the new house construction would potentially not have even triggered a significant regulated activity
Mhm.
based on the amount of activity that's involved with the house.
Mhm.
It was my suggestion that they come in together, just because there would be questions about, well, what are you proposing for the lot in the future? Knowing that any new owner that came in, seeking to fix a violation on a vacant lot. I didn't want there to be, for the agency or the public to think that a new owner was coming in to rectify the violation, but not going to talk about what their future plans were. So they are being proposed as one application.
Okay.
Okay.
So have we discussed, do we need to?
Do
that
the
portion-
plans that we have on file address the violation? I think maybe is what Heather's asking.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, no, Steve speaks,
I
Heather.
speak, Heather.
Your interpreter. So yes, the application includes materials that would address the wetland violation. And most of that is, if you go to the pending application page, what's currently the most recent, it's at the top, wetland restoration and buffer enhancement plan.
Okay, so because last time, from what I recall, I think there was some conversation about the potential removal of trees that had
Okay.
grown over the fill. And this is actually where I'm going with this is I don't know that
Gotcha.
we've had an updated conversation about this. And so that's why I'm
Right. I
bringing
did
it up.
hear that on the tape. So we can certainly give the applicant an opportunity to put their 2 cents in. I would say that as the wetland agency, there are certainly benefits to trees, but when there is fill in a wetland that has resulted in the wetland no longer being delineated as wetland, that you want to remove the fill.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
can show you aerial photos of the property. Okay, that's yes.
I was
Where,
just looking at it as well.
okay, where you can see the wetland that is not disturbed. You can see the areas that were filled, and the fill area looks very different, even though it is punctuated by a few trees. It does not look the same as the adjacent wetland areas. And I'm sure that Mr. Kinney can talk about the functions and values of a wetland that has been substantially filled versus a non-filled wetland. Commissioner Knight has her hand
Yeah.
raised.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I think I previously asked, because this is the plans that are being developed on what was previously from a undeveloped subdivision. So I just wanted to know if we'd referred back to the subdivision approvals, because it would have probably come through the commission just to check what if there were any restrictions or comments on the
Gotcha.
subdivision by the
Mr.
previous
Dan-
agency.
Right, Mr. Dandria can chime in, but I believe that it was a 1956 subdivision. So
Yes.
the lot, this lot was a pre-existing lot, if I recall, and then the other lots were part of a 1956.
Yes,
Wait,
that
hold that.
that is correct. It was let's see how best I can explain this. The lots that Mr. Efron bought included 1, 2, 3, 4 on map number 4795, which was a subdivision. It also included this 5th lot that you see on the screen right before you. And it was approved by the City Planning Commission of the City of Norwalk on March 7th, 1956. And what that did, it kind of left that road, the paper road I was explaining to you, it was in limbo. It showed it, but it didn't show the end of it. And I think that's why, subsequent to that, on March 23rd, 1970, they filed map 7308, again, on the land records as in 1968. That's when the map was prepared, and it basically confirmed the size of the property, and it confirmed the end of this proposed road, and that's what you see in front of you tonight. So there were no, and then of course before Mr. Efron bought it, there was an extensive title search done, and there were no restrictions or deed restrictions that would preclude us from going forward.
And I'll just add that 1956 was prior to the Wetland Act adoption by the state. So there is no inland wetland subdivision approval process because it predates our regulations.
Great.
Okay.
I want a little clarification for myself and for Bill as well. And I don't know the mitigation part of this. So is there direction tonight as to what we should be suggested for this mitigation, this cleanup? Leave the trees, remove fill, remove invasives?
Alexis, would you share the
Yeah, let me stop sharing here.
wetland restoration drawing?
So
Or I can if you want.
Sure, I can, or if you want Mr. Kinney to walk through it,
Unfortunately,
I will share. Never mind.
Okay.
It's good.
thank you very much. I appreciate
Um,
that. I could talk about it, but I
Like
can't share.
that. Let's see. Oops, pending.
I think the question we're trying to resolve is what is better? Alexis, it sounds like your suggestion of the original plan to remove the fill is a better.
I would argue absolutely, yes. So this is when the applicant initially approached my office, this was the wetland delineation line, and it's a wetland delineation that's based on today's conditions. And then I let them know that there had been wetland filling and requested that they go back out to the site, which they did. So their soil scientists returned to the site with a small machine to do test holes through this area, and they determined that the wetland line is more likely something that approaches this line here. So Bill, you're welcome to kind of describe what.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's accurate to what happened and what we did to map the limit of the wetlands today and what approximately what the limit of the wetlands were before the fill was placed. We feel we're pretty close through using a machine to do some deep hole test pits. It allows, we're able to dig down, find the buried topsoil, and then look at the subsoil and back our way out until we hit an upland soil. So, and then make a determination of where that historic wetland boundary line was. So that's what you see before you. And the difference is close to about 10,000 square feet. So definitely
Nothing.
with that fill, you eliminate pretty much all the functions that you have in that wetland area. There's still habitat, obviously, because there's a vegetated surface and soil on the surface, but you're not getting things like flood and stormwater storage in the wetland. You're not getting groundwater discharge or water treatment, and you're not getting wetland, for the most obligate wetland species. You might have some transitional species that grow both in wetland and upland, but you're eliminated things like skunk cabbage and other species that you pretty much only find in the wetland.
Ms. Knight? Thanks, Bill.
Welcome.
Thanks. I have a question because it's helpful to see this diagram. For the boulder demarcation, how far back is that from the wetland line? Because it's not clear. It's within in terms of where the lawn is proposed to go in. It would be helpful to understand that.
Right. So on average, we're showing it roughly 25 feet off the wetland line. So with the shift in the house of about 5 feet, I think it certainly wouldn't be a problem to widen that another 5 feet.
In previous applications, we've really emphasized it, given that we wanted to go 100 and the importance of the integral role of the buffer areas in maintaining the health and vibrancy of the wetland. We've encouraged to be more at the 35-foot, the demarcation, in terms of other applications that we've had.
Okay. We'll review that. Pleased to review that with Mr. Efren after the meeting and see what we can do with regard to that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Knight. All right, I see no other hands raised. Oh, Alexis is showing us aerial.
This is just the aerial photo. So for reference, this is that the existing roadway. This is the paper road. And you can see this, I just want to point out this rim here. So there's an existing shed on the property. And then this is all of that fill area.
Yeah, you can really see it if you look on
So you-
Google Maps.
right.
It's,
So it's you can go
yeah,
other years. So again, fill piles. This one, it's not as stark, but it is it is different than you know what a wetland that is not filled looks like.
okay. As long as we resolved it, I think that was the outstanding, right? I didn't know if we were making any changes to what the plan was, so good.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for mentioning that, Heather, and Catherine. Okay. All right. So we'll move on then. We'll plan on seeing something from
Schedule
the
a meeting.
applicant. What's that?
So are you going to do a public hearing on the
Oh, yeah.
23rd? That would need a vote. And I will also pitch that once the public hearing closes, commissioners, you cannot go out to look at the site. So I always encourage you to go have a look at the site in person, and you can certainly call my office and I can go out there with you if you'd like to look at the property in person, but you need to do that prior to the closure of a public hearing.
Okay. I'll move to schedule a public hearing for July 23rd. Can I have a second?
Second.
Heather Breslin, second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Unanimous. Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
thank you. Okay, S 642 6 Range Road. Cool. We have a draft resolution.
Right, so based on your conversation at the last meeting, I did draft a staff memo that includes a draft resolution to approve with some standard conditions. Again, this is proposed in an existing or a previously approved lawn area. And so, yeah, it was pretty straightforward resolution.
Do any commissioners have questions about the memo drafted July 5th? Okay, does anybody want to move to approve the memo? Need another
Sure.
minute?
I'll make a motion
Okay,
to approve
as written.
yes. S24-642.
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Brown, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Mark, you got any more for us?
No,
You
I
got-
hope
you're-
that's a
you're
lot.
getting your ticket punched here for repeat customer.
I'm gonna miss you guys.
What are you gonna do with your Tuesday nights?
I don't know. I don't know yet. Thank you so much for all your help. I mean, you guys, it's a lot of work you guys do, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good luck.
All right, thank you. Have a good day. Good night. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Who? Second?
I'll second. I haven't done any seconding today.
There you go. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Heather, did you vote or are you abstaining?
No, I said aye.
Oh, you did say aye. Okay,
Yep.
unanimous. Conservation initiatives. I don't have anything to throw out there right now. Okay, then I'm gonna move on. Comments
I
to
have
staff?
I have a general comment,
Okay,
Okay.
if I may.
please.
One other thing that struck me is that in looking at some of the city applications, in terms of a conversation, maybe with like Paul Sotnick, is that, you know, they focus a lot on the civil engineering, but to the extent that when they're doing improvements, to think about tree plantings or landscaping as improving, you know, the infrastructure and the integrity of the wetlands, that plantings are also an important part. And
Yeah,
maybe you
I
flag
think-
that as something for the city to maybe shift mindset a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is it's a budgetary issue. So I think that the city is actively looking at green infrastructure and trees and canopy replacement. But then on the flip side, we have the engineering department, which is in charge with these bridge repair requirements. And when the bridge repair, when the design drawings go out to bid, they have a certain amount of kind of funding for bridge repair. And so when it's bid out, it is pretty myopically focused on the required bridge repair. And because of the way that some stuff is funded, they don't have a lot of wiggle room to add it in. But I've made that comment previously to them, and I will definitely reiterate it to them. You know, maybe we could have someone from Public Works come and kind of explain their operations and how they are kind of in a more kind of circling back kind of way, working on, you know, trees adjacent to the roadway, as opposed to a lock and step with some of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, because I think they do have budget for trees in the general tree program to put some
Yep.
trees in. And maybe it's something to say like, look, in terms of the landscaping, it's not necessarily breaking the bank, but you know, that is a cost, and that's definitely a value. You know, wetlands obviously are a very valuable resource too.
Right. I can ask if one of them might come and just kind of give you a brief kind of what they're doing. Because I do think it's not so much the cost, but it's kind of like these two different banks.
It's a coordination.
Yeah, it's a coordination issue.
I know Paul overlaps with the trees, so.
Yes, he does.
Okay, good one. Thanks, Catherine. Comments of staff?
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay, any other commissioners? Thank you for being present. Oh, Heather?
I don't know if I should say this.
Oh, God.
Because it is, but I'm going to, and you can just stop me if it's not allowed. But I'm very lost on the public speaking of the Range Road when we don't have any real say over anything. Is that, I mean, we have a say of how it's done, but we're not here to approve any development. Correct?
Range Road. Are you sure you're talking about Range Road?
Singing Woods.
Singing Woods.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So I'm sorry, what your question is?
I'm
You're
just
wondering, like,
confused.
how
Am I
much-
misreading that situation? Am I misunderstanding? Are
I think if this is, go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so for any specific questions about an application, you can just give me a call tomorrow and we
Okay.
can sort out any confusion.
Thank you. It threw me for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird situation.
right.
Yeah.
Like,
First
And
for
we-
me, actually.
And so the commission can't circle back to an item to
Yeah.
discuss an item once it's been on the agenda and then you've moved off, but you can certainly ask your staff for help in clarifying. And then if you have remaining questions after we talk, you can certainly bring it up at the next meeting on the 23rd and ask away. during discussion of that application.
Okay, that's fine, right? It's not really an application question. It's a clarification of our role given that, right? So I'll ask
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Catherine?
So since Heather went to that, it just feels kind of strange when the public gives comment, which is fantastic. I mean, I think it's really great to have people who are actually passionate about the wetlands and trying to give voice to, protecting the resource. It just feels maybe a little bit from the participant who's maybe giving in just that where we stand or that we're deaf ears because there's just silence. It just kind of like moves on. And so it can feel kind of like after they've done this passioned, participation that it's just like radio silence. So I don't know
Right.
whether there's something we could do to kind of encourage, because we need more people that are passionate about the wetlands in the community.
I'll if you don't mind, Alexis, I think that's, as the chair man, I feel uncomfortable when I hear people who haven't ever commented on anything in the past who happen to live in the vicinity of an active application. So I feel that it is our obligation to listen to them. I am hesitant to engage in conversation just because of that odd situation. But if you think, I definitely agree that it's nice to hear people excited. I will be very interested to see if they continue to comment and be excited once this project has passed through our hands. But anyway, yeah, so that's my just an explanation of why I could be taking the opportunity to engage and respond and fill that silence, but I've chosen not to.
Right. And I can certainly, as your staff, reach
not be
out.
right.
I have the email of one of tonight's speakers. I don't have the email of the other, but if they're watching this, maybe they can contact me. And I can certainly, on behalf of the commission, thank them for the information and the obviously the amount of research that they did in advance of their presentation tonight. Definitely. Yeah, and I can send you if any of you are interested in additional vernal pool information. I can certainly send you some general information about vernal pools in Connecticut.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of bringing coals to Newcastle sometimes, but you let them, you let people share what they've learned in their journey. But I think it's just a matter of just validating to say you were heard.
Mhm.
Okay,
Maybe.
noted. What's Coles to Newcastle? I don't know that one.
Well, Newcastle's a big producer of coal. It's like it's an old like Winston Churchill, like Victorian. That's how old I am.
Wait,
Like
okay.
when you're bringing something that people don't need, it's like bringing coals to Newcastle. Anyways, yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like bringing mosquitoes to the Adirondacks.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah.
The flies, it was last weekend. The flies were horrendous. Okay, Heard. How about that? Heard. Okay. Anything else? I move to adjourn the meeting. Second?
Second.
Ed, that was your chance. You missed it.
Sorry.
No
You know I
discussion.
can't stand silence for more than 1 second.
I
All right.
heard the cat second.
I
All in
approve.
favor? Okay.
Hi.
All
Right.
right. Thanks, everybody.
Night.
See you on the 23rd. Have a good night.
Night.